Welcome to the Rebel Rise podcast, a place where badass women like you come to connect, learn, and grow. Here, we celebrate the relentless spirit of women who dare to dream and design their own destinies. This is your time for no bullshit, so no subject is off limits. This is a time for you to collect inspiration and create the vision for your life. Get ready to break free from societal expectations, take your power back, and step into your dream life. Your empowerment journey begins right here. Let's go. Okay, we have somebody very special in the house with us today, and I am so excited to dive right into this episode of the Rebel Rise podcast. We have self-realization guide Nekita Reyna here with us to dive into getting in alignment with your soul. Now, I say this all the time on this podcast, but I couldn't think of a better person to have on this topic because she and I have so many deep conversations about how important knowing your soul is and being in the right energetic frame is. So, welcome, Nekita.
Wow, thank you, Vanessa. And thank you for this initiation. You have a way of divine timing. This is just a topic that's really close to my heart right now and in the exploratory phase of it. So I'm excited to dive in just what's real and present for me and community, and hopefully it resonates with those that need to hear it.
Yeah, I love that. And let's dive into that. How do you know what's real and present with you? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Mhm. Yeah, just on the topic of the soul and what that really means. What I'm learning more and more is that it's being in the body. So whatever's present in the body is the first indicator of how we can tap into our soul. And so for me, knowing what is true for me is what is real. And I think that there's a lot of ways that what's true is real. That's funny. What's
I
going
love
on
it.
in my body is how I know. So
Mm.
a lot of times we have stories on what we think is real and what we really want to create. And what I've learned is especially as a woman, someone who wants to be in more of the feminine body, that I can create any story of what I think is true or real for me, but my body is always telling the tale.
Yeah. I was just talking about this in another interview too, where you can energetically feel that, and I feel like it doesn't matter how spiritual you are, you can feel that. It's like, for me at least, when I know if I'm in alignment with something and I'm feeling it in my body, it's like I can feel the energy move up in my body. And if it's a no, I feel it move down. Is that the same for you, or do you have a different experience with how you feel it?
Mhm. Yeah, I think, the yes for me, if we want to dive into there's so many different methods, human
Yeah.
design, your gene keys, there's so many ways to measure our personalities and our yeses and our nos. But again, it comes back to slowing down enough to know what that body yes or no is. Um, for me, yeah, my yes feels outward. It's a gut reaction, like a yes, and it's usually very vocal. I'm a very um sensory human experience that I have. So, yeah, it's usually vocalized, and when it's a no, I know instantly. I think that's a big piece of it is our yeses and our nos. We know them right away. But we have these stories and constructs and expectations. And so sometimes we steer away from those yeses and nos. And then we have these deep questions of what is my soul here to do? Why am I here? What am I here for? But it really, the more that we come into practice of listening to those yeses and nos, the more we just feel that present soul purpose, if that makes sense.
Yes, makes perfect sense. And I so agree with you about these rules and these constructs that we we really don't choose them on our own, right? Like it's something that we learn from our environment. So, do you have any advice, or maybe just share your experience when you kind of connected that piece and how you were able to step away from making the decisions that you were making for other people and you were able to just actually do that slowing down and listen to what was best for you?
Mm. Um, yeah, I can go so many different directions with it. So I'll actually speak on my experience of not being so connected, and maybe that can resonate with someone. Um, so I decided to step into a new career path that, according to all the soul contract things of you know, astrology or personality test, it's not in alignment with my soul. And so I've been in it for 6 months, and now I'm starting to, I've been feeling this like discomfort in my system, in my body, that I'm not in the right place. And so I've gone seeking. What is the next thing? What's the next job? What's the next role? What am I doing wrong? What skills do I need? Like all of these inner dialogue things of the discomfort of misalignment. And what I recognized in that is, when we talk about manifestation or making our own reality, it has a lag time. Like if
Yeah.
we had instant manifestation, like think of every bad thought you ever had, like a brick just fell on your head. That would be instant manifestation, and you would know that you're not in alignment. But
Yeah.
the way that things manifest, they're thoughts over time. And so what I recognized is like at one point, this experience, although now it feels out of alignment, was a prayer. And all of the complexities of my thoughts created it. So instead of seeking something new, which is running away from the manifestation I created, I really started to look inward, like slowing down. So, like your initial question was like, what advice for people who feel out of alignment? The long-winded answer is to slow down, because now I'm in this position, and the past couple of weeks I have had so much fun because I've accepted where I am, and I've taken a look at, if I were to have the job of my dreams right now or the partner of my dreams right now, like how would I respond in my system? Would I be able to hold it all? And so my focus right now is like, how can I get myself in a really like restful, slow state where it's acceptance of where I am? And from that point, then we can talk about stepping into elevated states of gratitude and appreciation.
Yes. And I think the key to what you said there that I want to highlight to make sure everybody walks away with this is the acceptance piece. You need to accept where you're at right now, right? We have all of these struggles. I have things I'm going through right now that I know for me don't feel in alignment, and I have dove really deep recently into human design, so I know like my not self not in alignment is frustration. So I know when I feel frustration that it's something that is not a fit for me. And I think the key about what you said that is a good reminder for me today is that I need to accept that, because in the acceptance there is power. There's power in sitting in that moment and saying, how can I make this enjoyable? What can I take from this? What can I learn from this? And then when you can slow down, now I am somebody who struggles a lot with the slowing down. So maybe you can give us some tips on that, because you already know I am somebody who's like go 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 all the time. And so if for me, that's like a wave, it's an ebb and a flow where it's like I have moments where I can slow down and moments where I shouldn't say I can slow down. I have moments where I do slow down, and then moments where I'm like, can't stop, won't stop, got to keep going. And that keeps my cup almost as full as when I do slow down, which I think is maybe a contradiction in some ways. But sitting in the recognition of the acceptance of where you're at, even if you don't love it, is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. To highlight of that, like when you dug into your human design, what is your design?
Manifesting generator, which is why I'm like, all over the place.
Yes. And it makes sense why that brings you a lot of joy,
Yeah.
because that is your design. But what you recognize is like that accepting of where we are. It doesn't have to be necessarily acceptance of the external manifestation of it. So, like you said, there are things that are out of alignment for you that you recognize. But that acceptance is like even the acceptance of the frustration of that misalignment, which I think is what you're sharing. But I just want to like highlight that because we're in such a like a do society that it's like I know for me, like becoming aware of all of my frustrations and my not self, it just started to feel like really overwhelming. And so just recognizing that like being in flow is being able to sit with those emotions of the frustration. And so like, yeah, to look at slowing down and what that can really look like because it's if if slowing down is really challenging for one who like knows that they need it, then going to meditate on a rock for an hour is a really big gap. And so to close the gap for myself, because I know that I really needed the practice of slowing down. It was like coming back to allowing myself to have the full experience of like watching a movie. And so it didn't have to be this introspective journaling, reading, like self-development thing, but just recognizing that right now my system is it's resisting the moment and thinking that I need to learn or become more to get out of it. And what I really need to sit with is just like really letting my system rest. So lighting incense, lighting a candle, get a $15 like Amazon light with the fun, groovy, vibey lights. And I sat and watched a movie, and it was like the most healing thing that I've done
Yeah.
in months to just allow myself to be a little bit human for a second.
Yeah, and I love that you said that because it's very ambiguous and I think a lot of people, at least I speak for myself, I took it very literally. Same with routines where I'm like, okay, if I have to slow down, then that means I actually have to slow down and I have to journal and I have to meditate and I have to do yoga and like all these things that we associate with spiritual practices. And this isn't a one size fits all. It's not the same for every single person. And so I love that you use a movie as an example because it's still a way to slow down. It's still a way to disconnect. I don't watch a ton of TV. I'm sure you don't actually either, but one thing I do a lot to disconnect, and I guess I can associate it this way, is I listen to music. I
Mm.
listen to a lot of different genres of music, and it depends on my mood, what I want. And because I live in this self-development world and this entrepreneur world. And so everything is very like structured and fast paced. And so to be able to take myself out of learning mode and to be able to step into something that does feel more creative, I guess, more. I don't even know if I want to say that music is like more to the feminine. I think it kind of is though. And just have it be expressive because I like to dance. That's like a way for me to connect, like disconnect my brain as well. So I think like I don't know, tell me, does that track? Would that kind of fall along the same line of thinking?
Absolutely. And I love what you mentioned about like being specific about the music that you choose, and all genres are welcome, but like recognizing that even the music that we play decides our mood. And I don't know how much you've talked about like feminine and masculine polarities so far on the podcast, but it's like the feminine is messy. It's all type of creation, all emotions. So
Mm,
if you're feeling like twerking it out and listening to some gangster rap and having that on and like letting that be the escape of like the totality of it is welcome, and just being conscious of like what you're choosing to really just cater to your own experience. Like we can have any experience we want at any moment. And when like sometimes slowing down is literally just slowing down with what's already going on in your life. Um, so yeah, just being present with like what it is that you're creating. Like sometimes I want to create a fit. And sometimes I recognize like I want to create the feeling of like separateness or like alone, like I'm the odd man out. And so
yeah.
recognizing that these like different experiences we have, just by tuning into how like what they are in the present moment gives us more autonomy to know that like we're really choosing them. And that can be like us slowing down.
Yes, yes. And to tie into that with music and manifestation, what you say to yourself, right, is something you can manifest, whether it's positive or whether it's negative. So that's something. And I listen to plenty of negative lyric music because there's just so much of it out there and it can be so fun. And then, you have that moment where you're like, oh, this is actually pretty negative lyrics, but it's okay because you're vibing to it, right? Like you feel still high energy with it. But I always also try to be very intentional in that way. So it's like you said, like sometimes you feel like sitting in a moment where you want to feel like off and alone, or sometimes you want to create a fit. And that ties into acceptance as well. But it's also sitting in the moment and saying, wait, why do I want to feel this way? Because I'm deciding to feel this way. I'm deciding to feel like I want to throw a fit. I'm deciding like I want to feel like a loner today. And um, whether I want to feel like a loner is like, that's okay. I want my own space. I want my own peace. Or it's, I want to feel like a loner because I'm feeling rejected today. I'm feeling not accepted today. Make that a choice,
Mhm.
acknowledge it, allow yourself to sit in it, but also move on and not dwell in it. And the other layer that I'm adding with the music to that is, can you play music that fits that to help you move through it more quickly? Or can you move, you have like I have a feel good playlist as well. So if I am feeling rejected or like a loner and I don't want to feel that way, I'm making the decision not to feel that way. I have a list, like a playlist that's not so happy that it's annoying when I'm in that mood. It's not too big of a switch, but it's enough to where it gives me this rhythm and it actually helps to pick up my mood as well. So I like to play with those dynamics a lot. And I don't know, I just have a lot of fun with that. So I think that's a huge way that I like to express and to kind of move through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the direction this is going because we are so complex and we have so many parts. And I think, you know, the depth of the question of like, what is our soul's purpose, our soul's contract? And using music is an incredible tool to tune into all the different parts of us. And what you're sharing of like letting yourself fully feel it. Yeah, there's so many different vibrational music out there. And I have found that when I let myself go to that state, I have no fear of like my dark side, my shadow. Like I want to feel this. After a song or two, I'm over it. I don't vibe with it. I don't resonate with it anymore. And so finding that balance of like acknowledging our experience, like you said, it does, it speeds up the process of feeling the totality of that emotion. And all of a sudden, like, versus just having the mainstream music or whatever it is in the background while you're driving, that's kind of like subconsciously playing. When you take that initiative to be like, I'm going to go all in on this emotion and feel it, it does. It's like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to feel good. I want to feel good. And I have that choice and I can play different music and play with the way that I want to feel. Um, so I love that. And it just reminds me too of like our voice. And so I love that you went the direction of music because nothing has brought me closer to like who I am and connecting to myself than my own voice.
I love that. And what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, it means so many different things, but having an actual devotion to it, a practice, I've seen it integrate into my daily life. For me, right now, it has meant like devotional singing and kirtan. And I've really stepped into this like um the power of mantra, just how we were saying, like music and words is so powerful. Mantras are a language that is like far older than English. And it's something that our ancestors have used as medicine, because when we say these different mantras and our mouth moves in a specific way, it connects us into whatever you like resonate with, whether it is like the creator, God, um, earth, like whatever that higher power, self, whether it's self, and that's like the recognition of it. Using my voice and singing has really connected me to that like present moment and being in my body.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that's not something that I've ever thought about. I think my interpretation too, just to add on to this of using my voice, is also like having the power to speak up for the things that I believe in, stand up for the things that I feel is right instead of pushing it all down. Right. Like that. Because for me, and I think most women, probably all women, right? We all feel the need at some point where we have to like push our emotions down, not process it when we're angry or when we're sad because we want to show that we're strong. And again, playing music is a great way to just allow yourself to feel it, move through it quickly, and then move on. That way you're still honoring yourself, you're still in alignment with your soul, but also, allowing yourself to express and to speak up in a way that feels honest and genuine to you. Because I talk about this so much. It's like my soapbox, but we get stuck in these little boxes, right? And I think that this is true for men and women. We get stuck in these very specific boxes that we're taught we have to be and we have to express in certain ways, right? And for us, it's, we can't, we shouldn't speak unless spoken to, right? Or, we can't always lead in a room, right? There's just like these expectations that I'm so glad we're starting to break through now. And for men, it's you can't be emotional, you can't be feminine, you can't be expressive, and I really don't think that that even gets highlighted enough. I know that I'm always like, yeah, women kick ass, whatever, and it's not that one is better than the other. I think we both have our own struggles, but being able to have the bravery to speak up and to share how you feel, to share what's on your heart, to share these things that it's like the word niggle. Have you heard that before? Are you familiar with Rebecca Campbell at all?
No, new to me.
Okay. So she's a really incredible, like spiritual author. She has all these really great, cute oracle books and decks. And so I have a couple of them and they're just so cute, but she calls it a niggle. And I'm not sure. I think she's maybe Australian, British. I'm putting my foot in my mouth. I'm not sure. So I don't know if it's just like a non-American term, but it's like just this like little voice in the back of your head that like it's like a nudge. It's like something's giving you a nudge. And one of the first cards I pulled on my spiritual journey was something about listening to the niggle. And it's about just kind of like leaning into those things that you feel like you're getting a nudge toward and being able to explore that, because I think that leads you to expression and therefore being able to speak up and use your voice. And it doesn't always have to be, when I'm looking at speaking your voice and in taking up space, I think initially it sounds like I have to be super rebellious and I've got to like go say screw the man and all of the like it's got to go super political, and it doesn't. It can just be something as simple as like I'm going to use my voice to say no, I don't want to do something, like I don't align with going out to this event tonight, or I don't drink, so I don't want to go to the bar. It's instead of saying yes, I want to go to the bar just to hang out with you to appease you even though I don't drink. If it's a no, it's a no, right? And that, you feel that in your body, but expressing that,
Mhm.
using your voice to stay in alignment with you and who you are.
Mhm. Yeah, super relatable. And I imagine for like a lot of women and men, anyone listening to this has had that experience of wanting to use their voice and feeling that frustration inside, like being
Mhm.
in a meeting or being in a room where it's like it's so like compressing, contracting in the body, coming back to the body. It's like you feel that, and then how we walk away from those meetings of like not sharing our truth or hearing the niggle, hearing the nudge, and then not, but the body is still in this state of like, I I can't go there. I think that's where connecting our practices, connecting our practices like meditation or like singing or like dancing. This is where using these different modalities is an integral part into our everyday life. And so for one who comes out of those meetings and feels that frustration, like they could just like scream. There's literally been times where I've had a meeting and I walked away from it so frustrated because what came out of my mouth was so far away from like what I was feeling inside, and that disconnect, like I didn't know how to move through it. And so I went to the bathroom and literally had a fit, and like tears rolling down my face. And then after that, having that fit and having like that, letting those emotions process, I came out with so much clarity. I was like, I know exactly what I want to say and what I want to share. And so just knowing that, like, yes, this importance of sharing our voice and using our truth and speaking up, and just like recognizing from the very beginning of like how we started this podcast of coming into the body and meeting yourself where you're at, that if you're someone who wants to share their voice and wants to speak their truth, and even maybe words come out, but they're not what
Yeah.
you really meant or intended, to recognize that, like, oh, this is, by leading with the body, this is me following my soul's truth. So when I'm in a moment of work and everyday life, um, and I'm feeling that contraction, that push down, like you were saying, that like that's the indicator that I get to go back within. And I get to create a practice where it's 5 or 10 minutes that I go and throw my fit, or put some music on, to really come back into alignment with that clarity. Um, and give yourself the space after those experiences of like not feeling connected or not voicing, um, to just love on your body and be like, it's okay. Like that was an indicator of where I'm at. And now by moving through it, it's up, it's out, and now I'm closer to my truth, closer to my aligned purpose.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. And something else that I think that piece in particular would help people move toward is this concept. I actually just added it into my coaching program, and I am so excited about it. Um, it's this concept of congruence
Mhm.
and energy, and whether the energy is focused in or the energy is focused out. And a lot of times, right, you were just saying like there was a meeting where you didn't feel like it was a successful meeting and you felt it in your body, right? And that's this concept of incongruence, because we don't always know how to speak up, or we don't know always how to get our message across, right? And so our body is showing that we're frustrated, or it's like masculine, like a defensive, because our body is feeling like we have to protect ourselves. And if we're not getting our point across, or we're not speaking up in a meeting, then that can be more feminine, right? And so whether we notice it or not, we can read that in other people, and people can read that in us, right? So it's like a subconscious, like, oh, there's like something incongruent about this here. So now I feel off, and now I'm not no longer accepting of what the message is. So I've been diving really deeply into this, which is why I'm so excited to have it be a part of my program. Is how do you listen to your body in such a way that you can be in alignment with that and what your truth is? Because like you said, your body always knows in all of those moments, right? So if your body feels defensive, how can you expressively, kindly, concisely share that in a masculine way to match your body? And to the other end, right? Instead of using really masculine language, like saying, you language is masculine as well. If my body is shrunken, like I can't have a masculine language and be like, well, you do this all the time, and it's just very incongruent. And so really studying that and where the energy is focused, because if we are using I language, we have a more soft body, that is energy focused inward, which is the feminine. Energy focused outward is that masculine energy. And so it's been really, really interesting. So I don't know, but I feel like what you just said is a really good way to start to learn that, right? So if you feel that way, just like the story you told, where then you went and you processed it, it's obviously such a good way to get started. But I would also take that a step further and then reflect on it and be like, when did I start to feel this in my body? And maybe what could I have done or said in that moment that was a little bit different to help myself feel in alignment? Because as I started to play with this too, it just it felt so much more liberating to just speak in that moment, because then I don't feel like that tenseness, that buildup in my body. Don't get me wrong, there is still moments where I have to like go and process it, or I have to come back to the person and be like, hey, I just want you to know, like, this wasn't the way that I meant for it to be, because I can be a little bit of a firecracker. I can have a little bit of an attitude, if you can believe that sometimes. And so I'm still learning to navigate that, but I think it's really interesting, and I'm curious to how the two would tie in and how it would help each other.
Mhm. Yeah, so for you, you're saying like how you can recognize where you're at in that masculine or feminine polarity is the contraction or the openness.
Yeah. So the concept of congruence is like where when your body language doesn't match what you're saying. So
Mhm.
if like we're frustrated, we show our frustration in our body, then we're not speaking our frustration. We're not sharing it. We're often just like, okay, great. And that's the
The
incongruence, right?
body's
Like you can see it on
frozen.
my face. And we do that all the time as women, and guys are like, I know you're mad. I know you're mad. And you're like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Right. Like that's a classic example. And they know it because of that incongruence. So finding ways to just like, if you feel like you're angry, you say, well, I'm angry because this makes me feel this way. And just like actually expressing it and using the communication so that things are in alignment, because it makes for more effective communication. But I, I've also realized that it helps you to kind of like listening to music and processing it in the moment. It's kind of the same there, where it's like you're able to move that energy through you a little bit quicker.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, what a like presence practice because
Yes.
yeah, it's like that's meditation to just voice. I know a lot of times like I have this monkey mind and a
Mm.
mentor of mine was like, "Why don't you just narrate what you're experiencing?" And so to be able to just say like, "Oh, I'm angry." Like I didn't just be able to share it. And so that it's recognized in the body and um something with that like the masculine and feminine polarity piece is like I went to a workshop a week or so ago and we just focused on the breath because I think sometimes if we are experiencing like so much misalignment with like whatever it is, whether it's a job or connections or um but to come into like yeah, the point is, like, when we feel that misalignment, sometimes we desensitize, or when I desensitize from that, where it's like we look at these habits. For me, I know, like, when I'm not in alignment, I need a coffee every day. When I am in alignment, I feel okay. I don't really need the coffee. And
Mm.
so, like, recognizing the patterns, but sometimes that desensitization of like our human needs and wants and maybe like the suppression of like letting ourselves get what we want can be hard to even navigate. Like, what is the body feeling? Am I feeling anger right now? Or have I been so contracted for so long that I don't even really know the difference? And so I think something like really tangible is like tuning into the breath. And an exercise that I did in that workshop is like when we think about healthy and masculine and feminine or unhealthy, wounded masculine and feminine. It's like we did this exercise where it's like bring up an experience of a wounded masculine, like an experience of a male figure that didn't feel so good in your body. And like then we tuned into what the breath was doing. And I was like, oh, I'm holding my breath. And and so now I can know those like different parts of ourself that come to play, like my wounded masculine, when I'm not showing up in my healthiest masculine for myself, my structure, using my voice, that I can just tune into like, oh, am I holding my breath? Is there? And then like the wounded feminine for me was like a quick, shallow breath. And so now I can tune in like when I am confused and there's so many different parts of me at play and be like, oh, okay, I have really shallow breath right now. Let me tune into like my emotion. Am I tuning into that part of me that wants to create, that wants to actually soften? Um, and so yeah, just tangible steps of like after this podcast, like take 5 minutes to tune into your masculine and feminine, the healthy side that feels really creative in the depth of your breath. And then when that wounded side, like how do you breathe? And it's something that can become like a walking, living practice.
Mm-hmm. Ah, so good. So since we're talking about it now, you just mentioned breath work and you just mentioned a workshop. So let's get into some of those tangible things for alignment and knowing what feels good in your masculine and your feminine and what you do and what you mean by breath work and workshops. Put the
Hmm.
spotlight on you for a minute.
Yeah. Um, I love breath work. It's one of my favorite modalities. It's something that I have been able to serve to my community for 2 or 3 years now. So I lead different breathwork workshops. It's called conscious connected breathing. A lot of times we'll be breathing for 30 plus minutes without any breath holds at all. It's a very like um, you know, persistent approach. It's not as aggressive as some breathing, but it's a way to just keep filtering through our emotions. So we've talked a lot about today of like how emotions get pushed down and how they're suppressed and the different ways that we show up in those not self states. And what I have found with breath work is if I can just like circulate my breath with no pause for 30 or so minutes, I can tune into those emotions that have been sitting, that have been stagnant for a while. And so, yes, like finding a breathwork facilitator, finding a YouTube breathwork where you can go on your own, playing with your own breath, setting a timer for 10 minutes and just seeing like different ways that you want to breathe. Maybe you want to have a big sigh. Maybe you want to play with a shallow breath or a breath hold. It's like all different. These are all different ways that the body expresses and is letting us know what's present. And so, breath work it's such a powerful modality, but the workshops themselves, what I'm finding more and more is like it's just community. It's
Mhm.
connection. And so like something so tangible is putting ourselves in a community more often. Um, and I know for me, like sometimes I have a lot of resistance to that. Human design talk. I'm a 2/4, so I'm like a hermit opportunist. So my first line is like my initial reaction is to just like seclude myself. I want to go within. I want all the me time. I'll do the breath work by myself, and I want space. But then the part of me that I'm like that I get to evolve into, it's the opportunist. It's community. Like my power is in community and making connections. And so I think, it's so easy to want these like quick fixes when we feel out of alignment or the next um, modality to learn. But I think whatever we can do consistently to show up in community um, is so healing because whether or not we find it comfortable or we find it a walk in the like it's a walk in the park or it's there's a lot of resistance there, it's showing us like how we're feeling inside about our own like capacity to relate to these different parts of ourselves.
Yeah. And breath work is so interesting to me. And I think you and I have talked about this before. So I'm not probably not telling you anything new, but I've done it a couple of times. I did it with Manifestation Babe. I don't know if you're familiar with her, Catherine Zenkina. She's a manifestation coach, and I did her high ticket program. And I did like a recording. I think it was only 30 minutes.
Mm.
And then I did one of Ryan's, which was virtual.
Mm.
So both times have been virtual. So I'm going to have to come to one of yours and do it in person because I've never done it in person, other than that little mini one that you ran for us. But I have some sort of resistance to it, and it's so strange. Like I feel like my nose burns when I do it. And this is just something I have to explore, which is why I'm sharing it. And I know like tingling is super normal, but it's so strange. It keeps me really in my head. And I don't know why. So I'm really interested to kind of see what comes up if it's something, if I have a different experience doing a actual full immersion in person. But the other thing, and I don't know if you hear this often, but since we talk about everything on here and nothing is off limits, what I have noticed when I come out of a breathwork session, the results for me feels like I've moved sexual energy. So is that a normal thing for breath work? Not that I think I'm a weirdo, but like how, like, is there different, right? Obviously everybody's a little bit different. So is that something that you see commonly where somebody feels like they've actually moved the sexual energy around in breath work?
Mhm. Ah, this is great. There's so many. I'm like, okay. So when you say sexual energy, what do you mean?
I feel like it almost feels like post orgasm energy.
Mhm.
Does that make, like, that's the best way that I can describe it?
Mhm. Okay. And yeah, before I go into that too, I'm going to ask like the resistance piece that you experience. You talked a little bit about like what goes on during the breath work. So your nose is like uncomfortable and you're tingling, and those are like sensations that are out of the comfort zone. But when you think about it, just like right now, like to go do a breath work session, what is your experience of resistance?
To go to a breathwork session?
Yeah, like when you think about it, what is happening in your body? What is when you say like, oh, I have resistance, what does that mean?
So it's interesting because I feel excited to do it, but it also feels like something that's a little bit of a challenge for me.
Okay.
Because I also, the other thing that comes up for me in my mind is, can I sit there and focus for that long, which is like a meditative thing, right? Which is actually not as complicated as I make it in my brain, but those are the things that come up for me.
Okay. So it sounds like you think about breath work, the opportunity comes up, you're excited because you can dive in. And then all this resistance happens because of the steps, the work it's going to take, the tingling, the nose, the sitting still, the stories of whether you can do it. You get there and then you walk away and it's like you just had an orgasm and you feel clear and you feel like you
Yeah.
process sexual energy. So that's the cycle, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's like breath work, it is. It's connecting us to our sexual energy, but when we think about like intimacy, this thing that we crave to like be seen and felt to our fullness, and it's like we crave it, and then the steps to actually get to intimacy are messy. They're icky. They're showing parts of ourselves that are not, that maybe like we haven't even fully explored ourselves.
Mhm.
And we have to go into that feeling to get to the other side of like, you see me, and like that's a living orgasm because I let you in enough to see me. And so, like this sexual energy, it's our life force. It's being totally felt and seen and like of the world. And so, of course, like to get there, to go, to have to sit and be like, oh, I've had these thoughts in my mind, like this mind stuff that I'm experiencing here, like I can't get out of my head. This is all the stuff that I've been processing in the background as I move through all these different projects and different things and different stuff that I have going on. And so it's not that breath work is the cause, the culprit, but it's the processing of it. And so by tuning into these like surface layer stuff, like when we think conscious mind, it's our thoughts, it's the resistance, it's the I'm not going to, I don't want to. And then we go deeper and deeper into like, I would say the next level is discipline. And so for that time, you have to just sit and stick with the same thing over and over, breathe in, breathe out. And it's a little bit of discipline. And then that's what people mean when they're saying like discipline invokes freedom, because after that, you have this experience of like your mind is clear. You have total clarity of like your body, your soul body connection, and it feels orgasmic, it feels blissful, and it's a way that we can start to recognize that sexual energy is so far beyond the act itself, and to like really be present with that energy is to be present with that total experience. It's this like this pull and um, tug and pull, push and play, in and out. It's like it's
Yeah.
duality. It's duality where it's like you had to go through that experience of like separateness and resistance and then doing the practice and then all of a sudden you feel the oneness. Um, so it goes into exactly like everything that we have talked about. It's just another like pocket of it is like when we feel out of alignment, that's the resistance, that's the tug, and we need it because then it's like, okay, I'm out of alignment. And finding a practice, finding something that brings us into then again that discipline, that practice of it, and then we find alignment again. And so it's so cyclical. And I think that that's what the human experience is, like, to be a soul that comes into this body. It's so death and rebirth, there's cycles to it, and so I think connecting to ourselves and finding true alignment is, like, coming into the flow of that cyclical nature of life, that there's gonna be moments of disconnect and discomfort, and we came here to experience that, so then we can choose into, again, what feels like alignment, like fulfillment for us.
Yeah. And that's so important is that balance, right? Like the dark and the light and the yin and the yang and all of that. Without one, we can't experience the other. So if you're expecting to feel an alignment and lit up and excited and full of energy all the time, well, you wouldn't appreciate that as much if you didn't have those days where you can't pull yourself out of bed or where you're just angry and you are admitting to yourself you want to be angry. If you didn't have that spectrum, there would be nothing to look forward to and nothing to appreciate. So I love that you brought that up.
Mm.
Now, if people want to connect with you, Nekita, and they want to get to know more about you and your amazingness and all of the things that you're up to, how would they find you?
Yeah, I'm an Instagram girly right now. So my Instagram handle is I am Nekita Reyna. And I'm really just stepping into sharing more of my daily life and like how I process the world right now. And so really just stepping into being like the friend, the one that's relatable. And so yeah, that's the structure of my Instagram and how to connect with me right now is just to like, let's create this really connected community together where we can all feel permission to share our different passions and our different icks and our different experiences. So that's the best place to find me now.
Yes, amazing. I love it. I know you took a break from Instagram, but I'm personally glad that you're there because I love getting to see all of the amazing stuff that you're into on the weekends. So don't let her fool you. I know she sounds really humble about it, but she's always doing some really, really cool stuff on the weekends. She's always traveling with her soul family and just doing all of the amazing things. So Nekita, thank you so, so much for being here, for sharing space. I think this is probably the longest episode I've done to date, but it was all such good, good stuff. So thank you so much for coming here, sharing space, sharing energy with us. And I just appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for amplifying everyone's magic and for just stepping into this beautiful empowerment and also soft, just like total dualistic, beautiful woman that you are. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is something that is so on my heart. And this is the one thing I know for sure feels in alignment with me and my soul. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.